Its galaxy is uncharted.
This probe may represent contact with a new species.
Its purpose is unknown.
Reactor 2 has just been shut down.
What?
Its power is unstoppable.
Whatever it is, it's slowly disabling our station.
And its first victim is Odo.
You happen to know the schedule of his regenerative cycle?
My God, I have no idea.
It's beginning. No one has ever seen me like this before.
On the next episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
There's a bigger issue here. Just because a group of people belong to the Federation, it does not mean that they are saints. The trouble is Earth. On Earth, there is no poverty, no crime, no war. You look out the window of Starfleet headquarters and you see paradise. Well, it's easy to be a saint in paradise. Out there, all the problems haven't been solved yet. Out there are no saints, just people. Angry, scared, determined people who are going to do whatever it takes to survive.
What I want to know is, out of all the stories you told me, which ones were true and which ones weren't?
My dear doctor, they're all true.
Even the lies.
Especially the lies.
On behalf of the Bajoran government
And the Promenade Merchants Association,
I officially welcome you to Deep Space Nine.
Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome to Especially the Lies, a Deep Space Nine podcast, part of the Front Row Network and NPR Illinois Community Voices. We're a group of newbies watching Deep Space Nine for the very first time, and a group of prophets, or whatever you want to call us this week, that have watched the show way too many times. And we have a new rating, a ranking, I wanted to throw out there. We're number 64 for TV Review Podcast in the United States.
All right, let's go.
Good job. Keep sharing, liking, subscribing, doing all that stuff. We like it. We really do. And in Slovakia, we're still number 2. So thanks, Slovakia. A reminder to like, subscribe, follow, click all the buttons. All the links are down below. And also, if you can, leave a review. Those really do help us. We did not get another Apple review this time, but we did get a fun one from YouTube. Actually, two. Nicole pointed out one when we were talking earlier. I guess we educated somebody and let them know what spank bank means. So congratulations for that.
Sorry.
Mike, what are you feeling sensitive about?
I keep wiping my eyes, and I'm like, I'm not crying. I just, my eyes will not stop watering tonight.
Yeah, I've been having allergies the past 2 days, so. And the other one we have comes from PhD Iaz, so I'm guessing PhDez, and it is yes with 3 exclamation points. Thank you, YouTube algorithm. I'm a 50-year-old whose first exposure to Trek was The Wrath of Khan on TV in 1985. I nerded out to Trek as a kid and was so ready for this in 1992. Doing a rewatch now, and I'm on season 6, Cup of Roctagino, and about to watch on all the classics that ends with, okay, I'm not going to say that because it's a spoiler. But yeah, thank you, PhD. Welcome. Glad the YouTube algorithm found you. The YouTube algorithm hates us, so I'll take it. I haven't even started the intro yet, but you know, whatever. I'm Scott, and with me today is
Emily,
Christopher, Mike,
Nicole,
Prentice,
Jessi,
and Ryan.
Ryan! Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Ryan.
So, Ryan, you're not new to most of us, but you're new to some of us, and probably some new listeners as well, too. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Yes, I will. Thank you for giving me permission to do that. I am Ryan Slawinski. I'm one of the hosts of Yum Yum Podcast. My wife, Rachel, and I review episodes of science fiction television. We started off doing Star Trek Discovery, and as we are recording this, we're actually finishing Star Trek Discovery, but we've covered Babylon 5, which is how we first connected with a lot of the podcasting hosts here when you guys were covering B5. We've done Space Above and Beyond, which we were lucky enough and fortunate enough to get interviews with cast and crew from that series, and even have some insights about the world of Star Trek from some of those actors and creatives like Tucker Smallwood, who would be in Voyager and Enterprise. But we just love talking about sci-fi TV. We've been watching The Expanse for the first time. We're reading the books of The Expanse for the first time as well. And, you know, I grew up with Star Trek like many people. It's just my bread and butter. It's hard to say, like, what's a favorite of mine. You know, it's like I love TNG, I love Voyager, I love Deep Space Nine, I love the original series. And I'm just happy to be here to talk about some Star Trek with you all.
I gave Ryan the option of picking the episode he wanted to come on, and for some reason, he picked The Forsaken, which I think kind of says a little bit about Ryan, just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
What day is it there, Ryan?
Today is Monday. It is the 14th.
He's from the future.
And it's winter.
It is winter. Yes, it is.
Well, or maybe fall, I guess.
No, you're right. It's autumn. Why am I agreeing with you? The days have blurred together.
At least somebody agrees with me.
Well, when you're... I don't know what I'm going with there.
I don't know, Christopher. Can you mansplain baseball to me again? Because I never actually said that Ron Santo was the best third baseman. I just said he was my favorite. You're like, well, he's not the best. I'm like, I know, Dick. That's why I said K.
Yeah, but the post was for the best, not your favorite.
My God.
Learn how to read.
I'm just glad Jessi made it. I was getting worried.
I'm here.
Commenters would have cried if you didn't show up.
They do get upset when she's not here.
They do get a little testy. That's true. Let's go ahead and dive into The Forsaken. And Ryan, do you have a synopsis for us?
Yes, I do. Memory Alpha has the longest quickfire synopsis available, which is The Forsaken. An alien computer program wreaks havoc with station systems during a visit from Lwaxana, Troi, and other ambassadors. Quick, simple, to the point, or we could summarize it as Odo faces his biggest challenge yet, a milk.
It's actually true, because at that point, Deanna doesn't have a kid. So, yeah, she's not a gilf yet.
Well, I mean, technically, Deanna Troi gave birth in the second season premiere to a ball of energy that grew up real fast, so technically you're wrong. So, actually, sorry, Scott, wrong. Actually, Deanna Troi...
that episode was called The Gifts, sir.
That is a great synopsis.
Okay, let's go ahead to our newbies who have only watched The Forsaken. Well, I mean, they probably watched it a couple times because they take notes, but this is their first time watching it. And we'll get their first reactions, and then we'll go to the folks who have seen the show fully. So, Christopher, what is your first impression on The Forsaken?
So one, I only watched this episode one time, which is surprising. Yeah, but I really enjoyed it. I know the characters from TNG, and so seeing Lwaxana there, that was fun. This episode was good. I like seeing, the growth between Odo and finally getting to see, and my mind just went blank. So great, but I enjoyed the episode.
You finally got to see something. We'll figure it out later.
O'Brien, is that who you're looking for?
Bashir's diplomacy.
That's what they call it. Nicole, first impressions.
This was quite the episode. A lot going on. It was pretty fun. Some great lines throughout the episode. I really enjoyed O'Brien arguing with the computer. That was probably one of my favorite parts, his crotchety arguing with technology. I couldn't help but crack up at first when Odo was like basically terrified of a woman and Cisco was like, yeah, get it on. And he's like, can't you help me with it? Like, it was cracking me up. And then Bashir with the ambassadors, it was really funny to see Cisco basically saying, keep them away from me and keep them happy. And he's like, well, how long does this last for? How, like asking him all those questions and stuff. That was a really fun, like, dynamic between Cisco and Bashir too. I enjoyed that. But yeah, overall, like, great episode. I thought there was a lot going on, but it all kind of tied together in a way that made it cohesive. And there was some moments of, laughter and comedy and some serious moments when they get stuck and nothing works. So yeah, I really liked it.
Jessi!
Oh, I didn't at all.
I'm shocked!
I thought when Ryan was going to be on today, it was going to be some big, like, awesome episode, and it fucking sucked as per usual. I hated it. I had to watch it twice to figure out what the fuck was going on, and I'm not a stupid person most of the time. So I still don't know how the fucking thing got into the system, and I'm going to leave it alone because I don't care enough. I heard the term bipolar torch for the first time today and have never felt more validated in my life. I think I'm going to get it on the back of a t-shirt. I know I missed the last episode review. I loved that one. The one with Rumpelstiltskin. Loved it. Loved that episode. That's why I think I hated this one so much. Cause like that one was so fun. And so like, I enjoyed the whole thing. And then this one fucking drained my soul again. So yeah.
This is what happens when you miss meetings.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll go over to the folks who have watched the entire show at least once, twice, or 100 times. Prentice, what's your thoughts on The Forsaken?
It was a decent episode. I always like seeing Lwaxana Troi whenever she shows up, and I like the tender moment between her and Odo. I respected that. Odo got a chance to let his hair down, so to speak. and just kind of be himself, and he's just kind of getting out in his shell. So I appreciate it. Also, there was one moment in the episode that I found to be hilarious. So Cisco was trying to avoid the diplomats on the station the whole time. He so happens to be in ops, and they so happen to be there. So he had to turn the face of disgust around and say, you know what, let me clear this up. Let me put a smile on my face and turn around and deal with these people. This reminds me, this is kind of a weird kind of connection in my mind. You ever see that movie, Cruel Intentions?
Mm-hmm.
You remember he was outside and they came, he was like, shit, oh, let me turn around and say, oh, so it reminded me of that moment, right? But overall, the episode was fine. It was not my favorite, but it wasn't the worst. That was last week's episode. But
apparently Jessi did not listen to our recording.
I didn't because I wasn't on it, so there's really no reason to listen to it. Just kidding.
That's what half of our viewers think.
But anyway, other than that, it was a mid-episode. I love seeing Odo and that kind of interaction with Lwaxana. Also, I like the read that Odo gave of Quark. He's basically like, Quark he's many things, but he's not a petty thief. And Quark was like, well, yeah, you got me in a nutshell. I'll take that. So I appreciate that about the episode as well.
Mike, first impressions.
I really like this episode, actually. To me, I know, it's crazy. I don't know where you guys are coming from hating on it. Jeez.
I'm the only one that's hated on it, by the way. So
even to find that it was mid, I'm just shocked because this is an episode where I feel like basically the majority, well, not say all of them, but the majority of the main cast members get a moment at least in this episode. And this is the first time where you actually get like a little bit of extra meat off of like the mystery that is Odo. Sana is a great character. I love when she shows up because she is chaos walking and in a good way, in like a warm, like sweet way. And then the whole interaction with her and Odo in the elevator shaft was incredible. I loved it. And you get to see Bashir in a little bit of a less dorky setting for maybe the first time so far this season. I mean, it was still kind of comedic, obviously, but like the way that he played it off, I just thought was brilliant. The whole overall story of the weird alien robot space dog that shows up and infects the computer, like it's kind of like, who cares, honestly? Like that's not even really the main part of the episode. The main thing of the episode is the character interactions, and I love it for that.
Emily,
I really like this episode.
Jessi, you're on your own.
It's fine. I usually am. It's okay. I'm used to it.
But I can understand if you haven't watched TNG that Lwaxana's character isn't gonna resonate. I feel like this does a better job at kind of expanding her character since she's not just sexually harassing Picard. It's kind of a nice break, or Riker even,
or anyone really.
Well, she was kind of.
Didn't she harass Alexander, Worf's son, in one episode? Let's get a mud bath together.
Well, okay. I'm going to stop you right there.
That was a little questionable. And she did kind of sexually harass Odo, but because he is so rigid and uptight, putting them together, I thought was a really interesting dynamic. And it's kind of getting him to lighten up a bit. And since Prentice brought up Cisco, doing that diplomat smile and okay, got to put the mask on, and I'm smiling and I'm doing the diplomat bullshit that I absolutely hate. I did also really enjoy that bit. And I thought it was actually a good episode for Bashir because he starts out bumbling and I don't know what the fuck to do, but when an emergency hits and he actually has to help people, he's competent, he finds a safe place for them to go until the issue can be dealt with.
I'm glad a lot of you point out Avery Brooks' acting in this. As we get farther into season 1 and as we get farther into the series, he absolutely does get more comfortable, and I love his little, he doesn't even need to say anything, he just kind of does okay, and now I gotta deal with this bullshit. I love Avery Brooks so much, and the fact that he's not wooden all the time.
I was gonna say he's not wooden anymore.
Exactly. He's figuring out his character, and the writers are starting to figure out his character a little bit too. So I like that a lot, and he will become a very, very. He's my second favorite captain, so he'll get there. But yeah, for me, it's another good episode. We were talking about this in our spoiler section last week, which Jessi didn't listen to either way, even if she would have listened to it.
Nope.
But I think the next few weeks, both the end of season 1 and the start of season 2 are some of the best episodes that we're going to run into for the early part of DS9. I'm looking forward to it. And this is one of those episodes that we're in the same kind of thick of it. I do have a question. Now, Christopher, don't answer because I know you already messaged Emily and I on this. Nicole or Jessi, did any of you have any inclination of who Lwaxana Troi or Majel Barrett Roddenberry is before you watch this episode?
She looked familiar.
Okay. Well, I mean, she's...
Like as an actress or just a character?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
I mean, she looked familiar as an actress, but I have no fucking clue who the characters were.
So Majel Barrett is, I would think she's basically the first lady of Star Trek. So
yeah,
she
she's
was
Mrs. Star Trek. Basically.
Yeah, she
that was the uppity one, right? The I want a new quarters.
No,
He's
that wasn't.
Lwaxana Troi.
Which one was that?
The flirty one.
I thought that was
The main character of the episode.
Oh well, who are you talking about?
That's
Lwaxana Troi. Okay. You said a different name too. You said two names.
Yeah, the actress's name.
Of Lwaxana Troi
I thought
is
the other character.
Majel
Okay.
Put the weed down, Nicole.
I'm not on any today. Thank you.
Yeah, she has a long history with Star Trek. She was the wife of Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek. She was in the original pilot episode of Star Trek as the first officer of the Enterprise, just Cold Number 1. And then when the series got picked up, right? This is how it goes. The series got picked up. TOS, the original series, she played a different character, Nurse Chapel.
Because we can't have women commanding people, so she had to switch over somewhere else.
That was a network note. And then for when the movies happened, she was still Chapel, but Chapel got raised in rank. And then when Next Generation came around, they said, well, we still want to use her, but let's use her as a character's mother. And that's Lwaxana Troi.
And she is the voice of the computer.
She's also the voice of the computer outside of Deep Space Nine, because Deep Space Nine has a different computer voice because it's a Cardassian station.
But when we're on the runabouts, you do hear Troi.
Yep.
And unfortunately, Majel Barrett, and I say Majel Barrett because she got divorced from Roddenberry, so it's interchangeable, but she passed away in 2008, but she recorded all of her voice so that they could potentially use her again as the computer after when they want to, which they haven't, but they have that opportunity.
And she was in Babylon 5 as the Emperor's wife, which again, nice little connection because, she was the wife of the creator of Star Trek, who's like the Emperor of Star Trek.
Now that I know who you're talking about, I liked her, but I didn't know that she had a long history like that, so that's pretty cool.
She, for those who watch Strange New Worlds, Una, who is played by Rebecca Romijn, is playing the same character that Majel Barrett started with that first Star Trek episode. But again, the producer said, we can't have women in charge, but Strange New Worlds is able to do that.
And I am wrong when I point out the sexism in Star Trek.
I didn't say you were wrong.
No, but some of the commenters do.
Okay. Historical context.
Just give it a break, dude. Let the women just put them barefoot and fucking pregnant in the kitchen for a while and leave them alone.
Well, he already sent his wife upstairs to keep her quiet, so.
No, listen, anybody that knows his wife knows that's bullshit. So
exactly.
He willingly went up there by herself.
Okay, yeah. So let's dive in the episode. Ryan, you mentioned already that there's like 4 plots here. There's an A, a B, a C, and a kind of a D. And that was Michael Piller, who rewrote this episode from an original script. And that was his goal, was to start doing what they had hoped Deep Space Nine would be known for. And that is being more bouncing around the station and getting a lot of smaller little chunks of stories. We don't have a major plot. We have little pieces here and there. So we've got Odo and we got Lwaxana, we got Bashir and the ambassadors, we've got the pup, and we got some other little sprinkles here and there. So let's go ahead and dive into the biggest piece of this, and that is Odo and Lwaxana.
Well, I ate that shit up at the end there, that moment between them two.
Aww.
I loved it. Okay, so from the start, I really appreciated her just kind of going for what she wanted. I didn't know her background or her character at all, but she saw something she wanted and she went for it. And I was like, oh, I like her. She's got some guts, And then then they get stuck in the elevator and I imagine he was like what my poor fiance feels like, because I never shut up and he just has to sit there and space out and look at the wall. And, So it just made me laugh because he was like a typical man, not to be, stereotypical in that moment. But sometimes men have selective hearing and they are very good at tuning us out. So it just made me laugh. But towards the end, you guys know I'm a sap and I'm a sucker for, sentimental moments. And when she took off her hair and said, no one's ever seen me like this, and he didn't want to turn around, and, and then she was like, I'll take care of you, and opened her dress so he can go into liquid in her dress. Like, I started tearing up. I'm like, oh my God, this is so sweet. But it was really cool because we got to see like a softer side of Odo. We got to see him kind of bring his walls down a little bit. And I really felt like the moment that they had was just so special. And he even said, you're not what I thought you would be. He thought she was going to be this forward, aggressive, obnoxious woman. And he even had said at the end, your sensitivity and your kindness and your discretion, I appreciate it or whatever. And she's like, well, I'll give you something more to appreciate next time. I'm like, oh, there she is. But I just really enjoyed that whole moment. I'm a sucker for the love and the romance, and you guys knew I was going to love that. So that was probably my favorite part of the whole episode. But besides that, it was just so sweet. And that's what I love so far about the show, is getting to see the different sides of these characters, because they're so multifaceted. There's so much more to each of them, and we're just cracking it open now. So that was really cool.
Ryan.
Yeah, I chose this episode because I love this plot, of course. I love this character. I love this dynamic. I think it's beautiful because it's a mature relationship, even though there's immaturity to be had. She's a very loud character. She's very over the top. She's very forward, but that's her nature. And we see how that can become a positive thing over time. There's lots of beautiful yet very obvious symbolism throughout the episode. This is a story about letting your guard down, letting your walls down. And we utilize the fact that one of the main characters in this story literally has to turn in from a solid person into a liquid form. And they utilize that beautifully. They give us the stakes of that, but then they turn it inwards and make it an emotional story. Make it about how he's a private person and that he's ridged up and he's insecure and he has to shed that as he physically sheds his form as well. I love the touches, just little touches that build up on itself. Like Lwaxana Troi, we first meet her in this episode because her hairpin was stolen. And that's just a fun detail to start with. But then by the end of the episode, the hair is so important to the connection that she would form with Odo. And she even has a line where it's like, I use this hairpin for this hair. And then later on, we see her take off that hair. And it's really nice. It's really sweet. I like Odo. He's my favorite character. Renee's my favorite performer. And what's great about him and great about this character is he's so reserved. So you get these little expressions, these little insight. And Lwaxana Troi is the first big character to come into the show and just sit down and ask him questions. Like, is Odo your first name or your last name? How did you get that hair? Did you make it yourself? All of these things that aren't just checking off a list of what the audience wants to know, but just help us understand who Odo is and make him understand things about himself as well. Just the whole background of he's emulating a guy that experimented on him, and just Lwaxana Troi's reaction to that makes him start to think about how he's accepted that past and maybe it's not as good as he's allowed himself to think it was, or that he really needs to re-examine himself. So I love this. I think it's funny. I think it's sweet. I think it's heartfelt. I wish it was more of the episode. It's what I really think. I wish this. You talk about Michael Pillar's stuff. I think the problem with this episode is it's drowning in too many plots. I just would rather more of this and less of some of the other stuff. But the other stuff's good too. But this is the thing you remember the episode for.
Prentice.
I want to expand upon what we were talking about with Lwaxana. When she was first introduced to TNG, she was this over-the-top, larger-than-life character, right? But then you started to see her get a little bit of depth, and this episode added to that. I forgot, this episode came before the episode where we find out that she had another child, but that child died at a younger portion of her life. And you got a chance to see her being really emotional with that. She's opening up, and you see the balance to that. Was that episode before this one, or was this after?
That's like a season 7 TNG episode, yeah.
Yeah, they do call back to one of the TNG episodes, Menage a Troi, where she bangs the Ferengi.
Mm-hmm.
They also call back to Half Alive as well in this episode with the person that she's courting trying to hide from her in a doorway, and then she's like, there you are. You've been thinking about me.
Exactly. My point about all that, it's easy to do these larger-than-life characters that have no depth, but I just appreciate they slowly made her a whole person, the progression of the series. So I really appreciate that, the character development for Lwaxana.
Mike.
There are a couple things about her that I think are really cool in this episode. And the first one is I kind of like how they set her apart from the other ambassadors. You kind of meet the other three first, and they're all a bunch of whiny pricks in their own way. And then you meet her, and the initial impression that you get isn't very good either. It's like she's just like them. She's all self-absorbed about her brooch and whatever, and then she's got her horniness quirk or whatever. But like how as they've continued to paint the other guys with the same pen, she changes, and you get to see that she's actually more of a tender-hearted person. One of the things about her, and I can't remember which one of you guys just said it, but about how she asks Odo a lot of questions about himself. That reminded me of something that became apparent about a person in my life that sadly is no longer with us. But she kind of took on the role of like, have you ever had a friend who like you go to their house and their mom or their dad like really treats you like you're part of the family, really genuinely care and ask you a lot of questions about yourself and how you're doing, how your family's doing? That's who she reminds me of. She reminds me of that person who has a facade and a persona that she has to put on, but like she can't help but being like a genuine, really warm person. And I love that. And that was one of the things about this episode. And I mean, this plot is the reason I love this episode. Like some of you guys have said, like I just the tender character moment between her and then somebody like Odo, who is also set apart so much from other characters in that he is kind of the man alone. You know, I thought was really great.
Nicole.
You know, listening to Ryan and Mike and Prentice talk made me realize why I feel like I like this character so much and I felt so connected to her is because she's a lot like me. And I realize that now because she's very outspoken, she's forward, she's aggressive, she says what she wants, she's loud, she makes an entrance, and those are all the things that I am. But she's also sensitive, empathetic, kind, will be the first one to listen, will be the first one to comfort you. That's very me as well. So I think I connected with her a lot because I feel like, I mean, maybe I'm not as sexually aggressive as her, but if I want something done, I go and I get it. You know, if I have an opinion or a point, I make it, you know, and I just really liked everything about her. Just hearing you guys talk about her and learning more about her background, it really made me feel like in different characters, Jessi feels connected to Kira, and we've seen characters that kind of remind us of each other, but I don't feel like I've had that yet until now. So I think that was really interesting. That was kind of a revelation I just had, that I felt like she reminds me of me a lot, and I think that's why I really like her. But also too, she's a telepath, right? She's telepathic, so she can sense what people are feeling, and I feel like that also makes her so empathetic and kind and warm, because like usually people can sense if somebody's safe or not, and if she can kind of read people's emotions, she can probably give off what she's thinking too, you know? So just thought that was really interesting. And a completely unrelated side note, when Odo was describing romance to Cisco and what he thinks of it, I literally snort laughed so loud because he just does not get it. It's so funny. But yeah, anyway, I just thought that was a really interesting correlation.
Christopher.
I did enjoy the character development from Lwaxana because, you know, she's kind of this flirtatious person who comes in to be like a foil. In TNG, she's there to like cause mayhem and chaos and you know, kind of be a comic relief. And the character development here where she owns like her sexuality and owns her power and shows that, you know, she is strong, she deserves everything that she has, and that she can have the soft and sensitive side. There's more to her than just the sexuality, and that a different form of intimacy can happen between like her and Odo. That was such an intimate moment. You almost felt like Dax said last episode that we were invading their privacy. Like it very much felt like we were invading Odo's privacy there.
Jessi.
I'm going to play devil's advocate, and I don't care if anybody doesn't like it.
Gee, what else is new?
If she was a man, she'd be considered rapey. She forced herself on him, and everybody's like, oh, he just needs to accept it and soften up. No, he doesn't, because you know what? He doesn't like people. So it just kind of creeped me out a little bit. And as somebody who doesn't like people in my space, especially when I've told them no, I can understand everybody's point, and I see it, right? Like I see that she's sweet, and I see that she's sensitive, and why not lead with that and stop with the forcey, rapey bullshit? Because it's weird to me as somebody who is a lot like that with, like, I'm not a hugger. Don't hug me. Don't fucking touch me. I don't like it. And, you know, she leaned in like the second time talking to him and tried to kiss him. And if that had been a man doing it to a woman, it would have been seen very differently. So I know that's not going to be a popular opinion, and I don't really care, but that is something that resonated with me as I was watching it. Was like, I'm not seeing the things that you guys see, that you guys are talking about. I can understand why you're talking about them, but I didn't see that when I watched it. And maybe that's because I have not watched TNG or whatever other show you guys are talking about. So I just have not been exposed to the character, but watching her force herself on somebody that doesn't want to be forced upon was a little awkward for me.
That's basically her character. That's what she was in TNG as well too. So
right.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. I mean, you can call it rapey, you can call it what it is, but she's yeah.
I'm just saying, if it was a dude, it would be looked down upon as a kind of schmutty character. Like, I don't know if people would like him as much.
Like how she is a bit of a fuckboy in season 1. Yeah. Look, I get it. I've had that with Lwaxana Troi too. I think what I love about her, especially in episodes like this, is the acknowledgement that it is facade and a persona that she puts on because she's insecure.
Right.
She's old. It's a part of her character is the insecurity of age, the insecurity of being a woman who's getting on in their years.
Mm-hmm.
There's something to be talked about how both Lwaxana and Odo, you could read this dynamic and this trapped in the elevator in so many ways, like the masculine and feminine personas that they both instill upon themselves and the fact that they have to relinquish those to be able to connect with one another. I adore about Star Trek and episodes like this is the guest characters and or non-Starfleet characters are given permission to act in ways that Starfleet characters are rarely given permission to do. They can be loud, they can be aggressive, they can have points of view that are completely antithetical, and I enjoy that. And Deep Space Nine as a series has the foundation of that because we have so many non-Starfleet, non-human characters. And so I love an episode like this in which we have someone who's from the outside and they come in and they look at someone like Odo and they want to get to know him. And they want to get to know him more than just his job. They want to get to know him more than just his species. They want to get to know him as a person, which we may not get afforded to by someone like Bashir or someone like Sisko, but we can with someone like an outside character. So I really like that. One of the things I'm just curious of what people have felt is we talked about Lwaxana a lot, but what do we feel about like Odo? Because this is also a great showcase for him. We're getting more information, but also we're getting to see more of an emotional range from his character too. Because that's what I really love about this episode is Renee struggling, like he's like his performance of this struggle that Odo has of trying to keep his composure in many ways, not just the physical, but the emotional stuff as well. Like that is so palpable to me. And this is like this second time the character has smiled in the show, and it's just so small, but it's memorable, because he doesn't open up that much.
I was actually gonna talk about Odo because
Sure you were.
I have fucking notes about it. Because this does so much for his character. He goes to Sisko like, what the hell do I do? Because he's acting like a woman has never hit on him, which may very well be true. That's the impression we've been given so far in this series. And when he's talking to her in the elevator and she's asking him about his appearance, he talks about mimicking the scientist. So we've gotten a hint that most of his interactions with other people have been essentially like he's a science experiment because they didn't know what the hell he was. He's the only one of his kind that they've ever interacted with, so they didn't know. And then he had to work security for the Cardassians, which is, those aren't your friends. Those are terrifying oppressors. They're mean, they're violent, they're nasty, and you're working for them. So you're not getting like empathy, compassion, just general friendliness. And I feel like this episode shows more of his struggle with the changing dynamic. Because even Sisko's like, hey, have you ever thought about letting her catch you? And he's like, what are you talking about, dude? Whereas for them, that would be kind of like a normal conversation or a normal suggestion, like, oh, just let her catch you and have fun or whatever. So I do appreciate that this is helping develop his character. And he does such a great job of portraying the struggle of figuring out how you go from like being raised as like a science experiment to then, security force for an oppressive regime. And then you're in this very different situation. And now you're in a really different situation with a woman who is coming on very strongly to you, and you've never had that experience before. So it's a good Odo episode.
Expected to be the life of the party and everything too. Like that's a big thing. He's expected to be the life of the party, whether he's a security chief or science experiment or just someone who can shape
entertainment, but not like an actual individual with feelings or emotions.
And completely foreign concept when she says, well, I'll throw a party where they entertain you for a change. He has this look was like he's never considered that before.
Speaking of never having women hit on you, Mike.
Wow.
Ouch.
Wow.
Well, he had one. He's got a wife.
Okay.
Man, Mike, you just called it straight. Wow.
Wow.
Damn it.
Okay.
Victory.
All right. Well, to follow up on what Emily just said, as much as I love the really like sweet, heartfelt, kind of deep interaction between Odo and Lwaxana in the elevator, the thing I really loved was how absolutely uncomfortable she made him in every other scene in this episode. And I loved how he went from being like the character who we've seen sterner, super stern, really angry, and then one time a little bit pleased with himself, to just like he immediately got uncomfortable and ran to Space Dad dad to ask for advice what to do about a woman. And
we haven't even seen Jake do that yet.
I know what to do. He's like, I know what to do about killers and thieves, but I don't know what to do about her. Like, it was great. And I loved how every time she like entered the room, he was like, oh, is that the phone ringing? Oh, I gotta hit this elevator really quick. Like, it was just great. I love that comedic aspect of the episode too.
Nicole.
So a couple things. One of the things that it made me think of when he was asking Sisko for advice and what to do. Do you remember the first episode when Sisko was encountering the wormhole? They're like, explain. And they were asking him. It kind of reminded me of that. Like, Odo just has no idea what to do with women. He doesn't understand them, which men do. But like, he had no clue what he was dealing with. And he even said, like Mike said, I can handle murders and thieves and this and that, but like, I don't know what to do with a woman. And Sisko was like, you're going to have to figure it out. And, as they progressed and, he was uncomfortable and he started opening up, it kind of broke my heart a little bit. Some of the things that he said about how he grew up in like a lab. And she was like, grew up in a science lab. And like, she was asking him to elaborate. He didn't want to talk about it. And then when he said people would like make him turn into stuff and do stuff, like, it just was really sad. And it really made me feel compassion for him in a different way because, obviously he's stern and he's tough and whatever, and he has all these walls, but he's the way he is because it's almost like he's just very black and white functioning, like go with the how do I say this? It's like mechanical almost because he doesn't really know. It's not that he doesn't understand emotion or compassion or whatever, but like it's almost like that's something that's missing for him. Like he doesn't have the same component of, like when he was talking about romance, how basically it disgusts him. And he's like, you humans spend so much time doing all this stuff when you could do other things. Like, so it was really eye-opening to who he was and his history. And it made me sad that that's where he was and made me like hope that he never feels that way again.
Spoilers, he will. Ryan.
Yeah, spoilers, he will. No, it's a beautifully done episode on a thematic level too, because he is so unaccustomed to other people having to think or care about him in the way that he feels like he has to do with his like security. Like that's his job, that's his function. He has to make sure it's on top of everything. And so he is a person who, he was all insecure about, I don't know how to handle delicacy. But by the end, he's thanking Lwaxana Troi because she knows how to handle that when it comes to him. And that's a lot of this episode. All of these subplot are about the characters involved figuring out what the others need and recognizing what the other one has given them, whether it be Miles O'Brien with his dog or whether it be Bashir with these diplomats. It's a nice through line and it makes it feel like these aren't just disparate elements within an episode that, like one thing to have several storylines to make the station feel alive, but you have to have that cohesion, you have to have that resonance, and like that's to me what it is. Like you can have this, mature aged romantic kind of entanglement between these two, but like how does that connect to Bashir with cartoon ambassadors? How does that connect with O'Brien going through a techno babble plot? And like to me, that's the thing. It's about breaking down these barriers and kind of recognizing what the other person needs and being thankful for it. So, there's a lot to just chew on in what could be, to someone like Jessi perhaps, or to others, like a frivolous throwaway, oh, this isn't a big event episode. But like to me, some of these episodes are the most important. Like some of these episodes are more important than the ones that shake up the status quo, because these are the things that are like the lifeline episodes in between those. You need more of these, I feel.
Jessi.
I don't use words like frivolous, Ryan. So there's that. So
you don't know what it means.
I know what it means. I just don't use it. It's not one of my main go-to words. And I don't think it's a stupid episode. I just this is not something that I understand a lot of people get, but watching somebody who's responsible for always being in control and having to be the protector and having to be the one that handles the situations and then taking them out of that element and just telling them listen, I got you. As somebody who is that person all the time, it's very hard for me to turn that part of me off and stop being in control. If we go out somewhere, I don't turn it off. I'm consistently head on a swivel, surveying this situation, looking for snakes to milk. But you know what I mean? It's just this. Prentice, it's yeah, no, I feel that. So like it's hard as somebody who struggled with giving that control to another person myself. It was almost watching, I don't want to say it was like watching myself, but it was a little bit, because I'm very much like Odo in that sense. Like I can't be out of control. Like I'm not ever allowed to be out of control. It could cost me my life. So like I have to be able to control any situation that I'm in. That includes being vulnerable and letting somebody else take control of that. Like, you know, giving that control to my husband and letting him, putting him in charge of protecting us is very hard for me, because I know that like if somebody robs us, I'm going to be the one to jump in front of him and be like, you know, I'm kicking somebody's ass myself. It's hard for me to just give that control. So that was part, I guess, part of this episode that really, like, I don't know, maybe it just made me super uncomfortable. Another thing that made me super fucking uncomfortable is watching Odo sweat, like, melt, like made me so uncomfortable. Like as he was sitting there right before he turned his back and he started to like glisten, I'm like, ooh. And then he's like, I can't turn around, and it showed his face, and I'm like, motherfucker, he is fucking melting. And then she opens her dress and this dude just falls in her dress. Like he is so vulnerable at that point. There is no words to describe how he could possibly be any more vulnerable with another person. She's literally in charge of his life at that point. So it was very weird for me to watch.
He gave up total control.
He did, and it's not
handed it over to someone else. Like literally, yes. She did not have that reaction that you had of his physical form, because it's like to her that was so in the past, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
It also is probably my favorite line from season 1. I turn into a liquid. I can swim.
Yeah.
And also, this is as good a time as any, as I was showing the newbies some really nightmare fuel pictures of Odo. Apparently, the mask and makeup stank a lot.
Oh.
So poor Renee, for 7 years of the show, is having to smell that mask. And apparently, others had to smell his smell as well, too.
Oh,
so.
no.
I can sympathize. I once dressed up as the idea box at Best Buy.
Hey, man, time and a half, 15-minute breaks.
Okay.
Smelled like death. I wonder how many of our listeners right now think Jessi is a spy.
I'm not, but, you know, I'm a snake milker. Leave me alone.
Prentice?
Listen, some of two of the most rigid men in Star Trek that are non-Vulcans, Captain Picard and then Odo, right?
Uh-huh.
Each of them have an episode where they have that vulnerability moment. In Picard's case, it was the episode Family, where after being this big shot, running the Federation flagship, he has an experience that breaks him down to the point he's crying to his brother about his vulnerability. And so seeing that kind of same, although on a smaller level with Odo, and just to Jessi's point, he's always had to keep this guard up. He's always been the one in control. And for him to find that person or friend to say, you know what, it's okay. Be who you are. If you need to fall apart and regenerate, do what you need to do, I'm here for you. That's much of a healing moment for Odo if he ever needed it, because he's always been that person to be the protector, to be the guy in control, and to have that moment he can say, you know what, I can fall apart in front of another person and it's okay. That was very much a healing moment for that character.
Can I say something about that? Because so that is very much when you find those people, you hold on to them. So like when you do find people that you like, whether you do it voluntarily or not, because sometimes you just don't have the option to give control to somebody else. When you do find those people, those become your people. Like I can see this woman being his person for a very long time. Like whether it's in a manner of like a relationship, like a romantic relationship or not, I can see him thinking very fondly of her, because when I have met those people in my life, those people are like some of my, who I would call like, you know, these are my soulmates. These are people that I have met in previous lives that, you know, have followed me around, and that's kind of creepy. But anyway, moving on.
For me, when Odo gave up the control, that is what made this episode so powerful for me. You know, that whole scene in the elevator, you know, everything else that was going on between the two of them in this episode, I think, you know, kind of you can push aside died. And that scene in the elevator where she is kind of coaxing out these details about him, and he is finally becoming vulnerable and giving up that control. That's what made it powerful for me. And that's what made it so, for both of these characters, kind of so out of the ordinary of their character. And that's why I enjoyed it.
Let's go ahead and move on from there to the other plots. Specifically, I think O'Brien and his pup, Ryan.
It's okay. Look, it's an interesting sci-fi concept. I think it's a cool sci-fi concept. It falls into what Star Trek always does, technobabble. O'Brien speaks absolute gibberish for like 80% of his lines, and then the other 20% he just keeps referring to it as a dog. And I'm like, okay, I did laugh. There's this amazing moment where the diplomats underestimate the brilliance of Jadzia Dax, and it's like, actually, they have like 300 years experience of blah, blah, blah. But then later in the episode, Jadzia just looks at O'Brien and he says the most obvious thing, like obvious, and then she's just like, no, get it. It's like, fucking come on. I got it. It's a classic. You need to get him to explain to the audience, but it makes her look dumb. And I love Dax. But it's okay. Like, it's one of those things where Star Trek, I feel, is guilty of being afraid of having an episode without a specific sci-fi plot. Like, it's a sci-fi show, so we have to have an alien probe that does gibberish nonsense. Again, I think it's an interesting concept. I think it's a cool concept. But as a story that you progress through, there's not much. You can sum it up in a sentence. I love O'Brien. I like seeing him be cranky and being annoyed at Cardassian technology. I like that as a continuity of like getting used to this station. But like as a progression of a story throughout it, it's like you will never remember this plot. This will always be the Lwaxana Troi stuck in an elevator with Odo episode. And then there were other stuff that made that happen.
Yeah, it felt very forced in, like shoehorned into it just to give O'Brien something to do, and like to your point, to make it seem sci-fi. And you know, it didn't need to be in the episode. It would have been a better episode without it, I think.
I felt like it was just, there was no life or death consequences involved, really. And I mean, there was the thing with Bashir and the ambassadors, but really, like, this also felt very forced. It felt more like, hey, we did this to set up the situation of Odo and Lwaxana getting stuck in an elevator. And then we kept coming back to it for some reason when they could have just dealt with the whole thing over like an occasional call, like, hey, what's going on with the elevator? Still broke? All right, cool. And then like at the end of the episode, the door opens. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't necessary. I agree that it was a really neat concept that maybe deserved its own better attention as a separate episode, a separate plot with more consequence or whatever. But yeah, it was just there.
I like Cisco being so snarky during it all, like, just don't let it get on the furniture, O'Brien. Like, he was fun zipping in and out of all of the plot, being a little snarky guy, and then just being like, all right, this is an episode where I get to sit and relax.
Honestly, kind of laissez-faire about just letting an alien life form run amok through your station's computer.
I actually, I'm a O'Brien fan, a huge O'Brien fan. So I love it when O'Brien has something to do. So I enjoy this episode for that reason. But I think it's also, for being from 1993, 1994, it's kind of creepy now because we're dealing with this crap right now with AI. And it's...
Yeah, but I can't just move some crystals around to make it go away.
Exactly. That's the whole point. You can't unplug it.
I mean, I appreciate that they make it a point that it's a life form. Like, it is a child or a dog to them. It's not just a virus or an AI program anymore. Like, they do a good enough job with that. And you love Miles. I mean, a part of it is his performance. And I just like how he's so pissed off and he becomes afraid. I like that whole section where he's talking about, like, I feel like it just keeps doing things so I can stay with it. Like, keeps doing, I went to have a break and it did this thing and it made me stay there. And that's scary to me. But then by the end, he's just like, my lovable dog. I'm going to keep it here. It's going to be so fun. I'll give it attention.
Nicole?
It made me laugh at the end when he was basically asking Space Dad if he could keep it. I'll give it attention. I'll take care of it. I'll feed it. Like, it just, and by the way, I'm calling him Space Dad now from now on, Ryan. Thank you. But
Space
it made
Daddy.
me laugh. Yeah, Space Daddy, sorry. But it just made me laugh so hard because he was like, just don't let it get on the furniture. Like, it was kind of funny because he went from annoyed and crotchety cranky to like, oh, I want to keep it. And like, it was almost like excited, like he got a new toy. It was really funny. I just freaking love O'Brien so much.
Let me unmute myself. Anybody else before we move on? I mean, we haven't talked Bashir at all, but I think we kind of, it was Bashir again.
It was fine. He's over the top.
The only thing that I have to say about that part of the episode is like when the fire started and the fire suppression technology was out, like they would have called a fire team in and took it out, had it taken care of immediately. You're not going to send your senior officers to go fight a fire with like 3 little puny fire extinguishers. Everybody on the ship, everybody on the station is going to be trained to fight a fire because there's nobody else who can do it. You're going to die if you don't know how to do it.
But Nana Visitor has a contract, so she needs to say lines in this episode, and they're all thankless lines, but she needs to say them.
And she has to give the same pursed lips face.
And hands on hips.
Yes.
It won't go through this metal. Oh, my favorite bullshit moment was when they had to let them know, like, come up with a fucking bullshit technobabble reason for why Odo just couldn't shapeshift out of the lift, because that would end the plot.
Oh, but come on.
This is Star Trek.
That also leads Odo to one of the other better lines. He's like, I'm just wondering how that electricity's going to feel.
I wrote that down. I was like,
I also like
good.
when he was on the comms and she's like, and it wouldn't be polite. And then it's one of the few times they acknowledge the fact like, oh, how do comms badges turn off all of the time? Like sometimes people don't tap it off, but I like it was still on and just Kira being like, what was that? And he's like, oh, and it wouldn't be polite. And just Kira being like, okay, fine, thank you, bye. Bashir's fine. I like Bashir. I like him in season 1. I know that's not as always popular take. I like Bashir in season 1 because he's a pompous little British child. I like how overtly British he is in this episode. I'm Mr. Happy. It's silly. I love the Vulcan ambassador. I love Vulcans. That actor, Michael Ensign, is in everything. He was the hotel manager in Ghostbusters, if you...
That's right.
Yeah. He was also in previous TNG episode, First Contact. He's an amazing actor, but I like seeing him here. I like just the ambassadors as just like over-the-top cartoon characters that, of course, by the end are all like, good job, Julian. You could call me by my first name as well, because now we are friends. Did the audience see that connection that much? Not really, but you buy it because it was quick.
You're going to be a friend with somebody if they save your life.
Sure.
Yeah, you're going to be on a first name basis too.
I don't know. The 3 of them were pretty far up there on butts.
They were. So for all the Bashir haters, I'm gonna talk a little bit about him. So I've always liked Bashir from the beginning, and this episode really gave him, I guess, some props in a way, because he, the thing is like they even said it's kind of young, kind of arrogant, pompous, thinks with his other head, whatever. But when shit hit the fan, he was resourceful and he saved their lives. And he tried to get them out. He couldn't get the door open, and he found a way to keep everybody safe. And say what you will about the guy and how he is, but not everyone would be calm and collected in that situation. Not everyone would be resourceful in that situation. If you've ever been in an emergency like that, you don't know how you're going to react at the moment. And the fact that he handled his shit, he got them out of harm's way, saved their lives, and then at the end, they were so thankful that he saved their lives that they were like talking to him, oh, we're on first names. But like, I really liked that. And it gave us, again, multifaceted. Each of these characters have different sides to them. We got to see Bashir in action. We got to see that he's not just a fuckboy. He's actually got a brain. And he's a doctor, so he's got to have some smarts, right?
I mean, he's young and arrogant, but I haven't met a medical officer who, just out of school isn't young and arrogant and thinks they can take on the world. And what was nice was that, he showed that he does have some chops.
Before we get done, a couple of things, because we mentioned the fire. Michael Piller and the rest of the production team saw this as a bottle episode because they had spent a lot of money on this first season. And so they had to save some money in the budget moving into later episodes. But that being said, I think this fire scene is really good. I think the way they redress the corridors of the station after the destruction was really well done, especially for a show that's still trying to figure itself out. And as much as it's 1990s flavor, I do really like the CGI of Odo. I think they did a really good job. And basically what they did there, because, well, it was the 90s, is they just took a whole bunch of little gelatinous balls in the CGI rendering and kind of let them merge together and mold together. And that's all they could do because they had like Bryce 3D to play with. And it was
simple,
they did really
but
well.
effective. Simple, but effective.
Christopher looks like he's about ready to question life choices. Let's go.
Every episode.
That's usually Jessi, though.
But it's the allergies this time.
Let's go ahead and ask our newbies if they have any questions or predictions about what's going to happen next before we kick them out the airlock or, light them on fire and go into our spoiler section. So, Jessi, questions, predictions?
Prentice, you didn't really mean it when you said that you hated the last episode, right? I really really like you. I really don't want to feel that way about you. And I'm thinking about drafting like a 4-page letter to address this issue.
Okay, Karen.
Please, we can do that. I'm just saying that it wasn't my favorite episode.
Yeah, but I think you said you hated it earlier. So like
we could do like a special episode where Jessi and Prentice fight it out over if wishes were horses.
I had just got done talking about how much I loved it. And Prentice was like, well, at least it's not the last episode. I'll go fuck myself. It's not a big deal.
Just wait until we do the bracket.
I'm using my extra one ahead of time. I'm just going to tell you right now.
Mike, I actually, good thing you mentioned that. I'm sorry, Jessi.
No, you're fine.
Because there's more episodes in these seasons, I think we're going to have to figure out how to like do something that's not a bracket.
Thank you.
If anyone has any ideas, send them our way in the comments below. Our season 1 recap show is coming up in a few weeks.
Well,
Jessi, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would like to cast my extra vote right now then for the Rumpelstiltskin episode, please. No, I don't have any real questions. I'm just going to write my letter and call it a day.
Excellent. Nicole.
So the hallway where the fire was, when they were walking through it afterwards, when they were trying to find Julian and the ambassadors, was it the same set as the one where Sisko's wife got killed? Because it looked very familiar. So I know that's a very technical question, but I'm wondering if they reused the same set, because even like the way that stuff fell and stuff like that, it looked very similar.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
I
So
wouldn't
that
doubt
was
it.
that was one
Also,
question I had.
They're also at this time, because the Next Generation is filming at the same time. They intermix sets a lot too. So.
Okay. I was just curious. Other than that, will we see Lwaxana again? Because I really hope we do. That is a question I have. And then other than that, I don't think I have anything else.
Okay, and Christopher.
My predictions are, I don't think this is the last we are going to see of the Lwaxana and Odo show. I think there was something there, and I think we're going to see more of it.
Cool. Well, we'll definitely see more of a lot of Deep Space Nine with next week's episode, Dramatis Persona. I know I didn't pronounce that right, but it's close enough. Dramatis Persona, which is an interesting one, to say the least. So we'll go ahead and leave our newbies there until next week, and then we'll come back for our spoiler section after that. A reminder to like, subscribe, follow, and also be sure to check out Ryan's other show, Yum Yum Pod. The links are down below, and every once in a while we'll let him post on our social media too. So, Ryan, do you have anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
Let me see. Everything you've said about TNG in the past has been wrong. You
What,
got to
me
crack.
or somebody else?
Just you guys. You specifically. Everything you've said about TOS has been wrong in the past. I just got to give you that. Jessi is right. The last episode was the best episode of season 1. How could you not love Miles O'Brien talking to his small child and then walking into a room where there's Rumpelstiltskin and the look of sheer terror on... It's the best acting that Miles has been given in his entire run of his career. Look at his face. Just that sad Irish face looking at this little guy. Amazing episode. Love that episode. I wish I was here for that one too, actually. You know what? Let's re-record that episode, shall we?
Yes,
Jessi,
let's do it right now.
Let's do it.
Please not right now.
No, I'm going mad.
Jessi, time to watch TNG fully. I'll watch it with you.
Okay.
Let's start our own podcast where I watch TNG with Jessi and we talk about, I don't know, why Tasha Yar will be her favorite character.
I see what you did there.
I'm getting tired of these, like, Jessi doesn't fucking watch sci-fi.
That was not what that was referring to. But
No,
it's okay.
that- Fine.
It's okay.
Fine.
Okay, we'll go ahead and jettison these newbies out the airlock and come back in a few moments for our spoiler section. Christopher, you look like you have something you want to say. No. Okay.
No. I want
He's
to go to
just so
bed.
moved. He's just so moved by all of us here.
All right.
Prentice, get it together.
Oh, shit.
Don't
not
you be
trying
mean
to-
to Prentice.
That's not a threat. That's just a direction. Okay?
It's a promise.
This is coming from a girl with a flag behind her that has a goose with a knife.
Hey, you don't scare me, Jessi. Let's go.
Good. I'm not to be scared. It's easier for me. I
Shit
can't
just
listen.
got real.
I don't
fucking-
chase people, so if you're not gonna run from me, it's even better.
I fucking love Prentice.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
I can figure out how to get out of here again. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to Especially the Lies, a Deep Space Nine podcast. You can find all the places to listen to and watch this podcast by searching for Especially the Lies on your podcast app or on YouTube. We want to hear from you. So join the conversation at Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review where you are listening to or watching this podcast. Especially the Lies is not affiliated with, and the podcast has not been prepared, approved, or licensed by Paramount or any other owners of the Star Trek copyright. All clips included in this podcast are the intellectual property of the respective copyright holders. They are included here for purposes of review, and no infringement is intended.
Why have you brought me here? Show yourselves. What do you want?
The Cisco has returned to us.
He arrives with questions.
There are always questions.
Welcome back to whatever our spoiler section's called. We'll figure it out before sooner or later. And a reminder that if you have not watched past The Forsaken, you should leave now. If not, we will dive into the one or two questions that our newbies had and probably talk a little bit more about some other things that are coming down the pipeline. So, Emily, what do we got for questions?
Well, Jessi didn't have anything other than a bad opinion about last week's episode.
Oh, well, I would argue that her bad opinion about this week's episode was a bad opinion.
Yeah, that's also bad. Nicole had a question about the set, which good on her for seeing any similarities because I didn't pay that much attention.
Pretty sure they were not the same set, but
Because I don't think the hallway would look the same as
that was my thought. It's just
the
logically
room
speaking.
she was in.
Yeah, one's a Cardassian set and one is a Federation set, so I can't see those being the same. But
Yeah,
I'm
that's
also
true.
not pulling them up side by side to look. So
It might have just been similar styling and how they made like a fire and collapse appear.
they probably had
There's
like
how many ways you can do it.
a chunk of twisted metal that they brought in for both scenes.
Yeah.
Let's also point out that until we reminded Nicole, she didn't know that Lwaxana Troi was the main character of the episode. So,
yeah.
Hi, Nicole.
It's called a Nicole moment. It's fine.
Yeah. What else we got?
Nicole wants to know if we'll see Lwaxana again.
Yep.
Two more times.
Yes, once in season 3 and once in season 4, I believe.
Yeah.
Season 3 or season 2? I can't recall. The next time is very funny, where she's got her horny pheromones and makes everyone on the station horny.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Pretty sure I think they give her a season off where they bring her back.
Yeah, last one's in season 4.
Beta said menopause.
Yes. That was a funny TNG episode where Riker and Deanna are talking and he mentioned something about, and she's like, yeah, I actually told you it's less than it is. And
the sex drive
was like, oh my god, I'll die.
Do you guys prefer Lwaxana in Deep Space Nine or TNG?
I absolutely like her in Deep Space Nine more. I think she's better written. But
agree.
As you said, I have bad opinions on TNG.
Well, it's because in TNG she's half comedic and half the dramatic. Like from Half Alive on, she's less funny. It's like you get episodes where it's like she falls in love with a guy that's going to commit suicide. An episode where she's grieving the fact that she's lonely. You have the episode where it's like about her dead other child. Like it gets way more dramatic halfway through. So it's like a weird way. This Lwaxana Troi is the Lwaxana Troi we had in TNG as well. It's just like the first 2 seasons were the ones where she was like hornier.
She's hornier. Which, by the way, this episode was horny. Next week's episode is also horny. So I'm looking forward to the horniness. Prentice is like, what the fuck?
Well, there's a quote for our new shirts. Looking forward to the horniness.
I'm waiting for somebody to start making those shirts. I'm just saying.
And I'm going to bring up again why last week's episode makes no sense.
What? No, that can't be right. It was foolproof and concrete. And it actually will be the linchpin to the finale of the series when that little guy, Rumpelstiltskin, comes back to push Galdecott over a cliff.
That would have been funny as shit.
I'll help
I said
you.
we'd be
I'll help
back.
you, Cisco.
I was going to say, Molly O'Brien has reached her teen years, and he's like, "I'll take care of the Dominion if you give me your daughter." And Miles is like, "Sure."
Is it the feral Molly O'Brien or the normal Molly O'Brien? It's
Why not
another
both?
episode.
Both of them come in. Oh, can I ask you a question? I always bring this up. Do you guys ever remember the fact, like, I know it's an obvious thing, but do you guys ever notice that the Betazoids have, like, black eyes?
Yeah.
Like, that's a thing? So I never noticed that Deanna Troi had black eyes throughout all of TNG until I watched Voyager, where Brad Dourif, who's a Betazoid, he has fucking huge, scary black eyes. And then it's like, oh, all Betazoids have black eyes, including Lwaxana Troi. And I'm watching this episode, and I'm thinking to myself, how good is she as an actress where it doesn't come across as creepy, where she has like these dark, soulless black eyes. It's like so emotive, but it's like, always forget.
What's the episode in TNG with the creepy half Betazoid negotiator? Because I don't think he does. I thought he had blue eyes.
Oh, is he half? There's also the episode Drumhead, where they bring in the Betazoid guy who has creepy black eyes who feel the emotions of people they're putting on trial. So yeah, it's a constant thing.
Had not noticed that either, and I thought creepy black eyes on Brad Dourif were just Brad Dourif.
No, and it's the thing, they never mention it in the show itself. They never mention that the Betazoids have black eyes. It's just in production, they put black contact lenses on all these actors. It's just never brought up. Like, you know, like, I just always thought that, like, you know, Marina Sirtis had dark eyes. I never, but then you watch it, it's like, oh, she has fucking huge black eyes as Deanna Troi. It's actually quite crazy.
I honestly have never noticed, ever.
Yeah, go back and watch.
We didn't talk about Pup much, but
I was gonna bring that up. I'm like, I don't know if the noobs like learned from Babylon 5 or what, but like, because they used to every little thing, they'd be like, oh, do we see that again? Like, no, you don't.
Well,
like,
don't we meet, am I confused? It's been a little while since I've watched Deep Space Nine. Do we not meet the Bajoran scientist that he modeled his hair after?
We absolutely do.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
his name's not dropped in the episode, this one, but
Yeah.
that's what he's referring to.
But that's a setup. Like, that's a neat little, like, you know, building of Odo's backstory is something in this episode that does continue on in the show. That's cool.
Absolutely.
I just find it funny that they let an alien life form live inside the computer and like you just never see it again and no one seems to care.
See, and I'm pretty sure, and this is actually on Memory Alpha too, so I'm not the only one. I'm pretty sure Pup dies because in season 6, Cisco, before they evacuate DS9, blows up the computer core. So poor puppy.
Yeah. There's other nice little setup things in this. Like, she asked Odo his name, and we actually do get to find out what Odo means later. What is it? Nothing? It means nothing, right? Like,
It's-
the actual phrase, nothing?
No,
Doesn't
it's a
isn't that-
Bajoran phrase that basically means unknown object.
Yeah.
Or unknown species, specimen.
Which is great because she says he's lonely, and he's like, you know, ties into his name real well. Yeah,
Well-
and then also the mention of he's the only one of his species that he's met, and he hasn't fallen in love with another one yet. It's like, well, we'll have fun with that later.
We'll also have fun with, as we discussed, Prentice changeling sex. So we talked about this earlier. I can't remember what episode, but the weirdest sex scene in all of Star Trek is Odo turning into mist and misting Kira.
Yeah, and I mean, this episode also talks about like how he himself has not felt, or he doesn't believe he's felt love for another, but obviously everything with Kira in this series with him.
Yeah, and there's the episode's coming up, and I can't remember which one it is, but it's very soon, where Renee, I believe it is Renee, actually realizes that based on where the writers are going and everything else, that Odo is in love with Kira. And Renee is the one who basically brings it up to the writers and saying, you know he's in love with her, right? And they run with that. So
he did a Bill Mooney in Babylon 5. Oh, it really works out well too.
This one works a little better.
Do you guys like the Odo Kira romance stuff? Do you like it?
Oh man, I love it.
Yeah, I like it.
I do.
You don't?
I'm a hater, I guess.
I have no strong opinion about it.
God, I have
pisses me
a
off
slight
sometimes.
correction, Scott. You mentioned that the mist thing that Odo did was the weirdest sex scene in Star Trek. What about Gates McFadden? What are you talking about, Dr. Crusher and the Ghost?
The Ghost Lantern.
The Ghost Lantern.
Yeah, okay, ghost sex maybe. Yeah.
Okay, but I actually
Tom
thought...
Paris. Remember when Tom Paris became a salamander?
No, I do not. I don't know what you're talking about.
Janeway became a salamander, and they
normalized
had sex.
ghost sex.
Brian, you win. That was the weirdest and left unresolved. They had salamander babies they left on the planet. We don't know what happened to them. But yes, Paris and Janeway had sex. The weirdest episode ever. Yes.
And
right.
Janeway calls out the fact Tom assumed that he was the one that propositioned the sex as they were salamanders, and she just very like smugly is like, Oh, you really think that you were the one that did that, huh? Like, I love that. Good on you, Janeway. Owning the fact that you also may want to fuck.
Janeway Jr. is out there committing genocide somewhere else.
That one's gross, but in DS9, the episode with Odo and then the bitch changeling, because they actually have that scene where they imply that they had sex. Because there was something like, oh, that's how solids do it. And that was fucking creepy.
That was funny. They were on the side of the bed, talking like, "Oh, that's how they get down." It's very boring. It's a little bit like Great Link, but not quite. So,
like, I don't know the family tree theirs, which has always made me really uncomfortable with that scene. Like, what's the family tree in the Great Link?
It's
How
a
does
family.
that work? I have questions.
It's a family lake more so than a family tree.
So, like, how are they related when they're doing this? Because that's not cool.
They're all connected. So they're all essentially one and the same. So they're having sex with themselves, essentially. That's what they're doing in that scene.
Yeah,
it's masturbation.
That doesn't make it better.
So
thank you,
wait a minute. So in Babylon 5, we had the orgasm heard around the station from Byron and
radicalized
Lita.
hippies.
Yes, the radicalized hippies. This
what?
Go back and listen to the
okay.
show.
Prentice, let me tell you about a man called J. Michael Straczynski and how he really loves telepath sex. So it all starts when he was a child. No, it's a thing in that work that it's like telepathic sex is something that permeates out. It's very funny. And I joke that in that series, one of the characters orgasmed so hard that she radicalized a group of hippies because then when she orgasmed, they all went militant. And it's very funny.
It was the worst season of B5. We'll just leave it at that.
Whoa, a orgasm so powerful, it radicalized a whole group of people.
I mean, haven't you?
Oh, wow, send me these episodes.
All right. Secrets of the Soul.
Oh, we know what Prentice's kink is now. Okay.
Oh, hey.
Hey, just watch Sense8. That's the other show that J. Michael Straczynski just made a whole series about this idea, so you can watch that too.
And Scott, let's not forget about an insurrection, was it? Where there was a violation.
Oh, that was Nemesis.
That was Nemesis. That was right. That was
Ron Perlman, who I think it's his birthday today, actually.
Yeah. I mean, if you just want to have fun talking about like weird sex, sure. If you wanted to have unfun and talk about all the times Deanna Troy's been violated, then we can go through every episode of TNG one by one and figure out how many it adds up to. It's a lot.
Right. He has been violated telepathy. Yeah, that happened a lot, actually.
She had a child. I mentioned that earlier in this discussion. That she just casually had a child, and then everyone was just like, "Oh, that's cool."
Riker was a little pissed off, like, who's dad? What's been happening? Like, what's going on that you're not telling me? And then she's like, it's an alien. I don't know.
Oh, they did mention the sex programs in this episode. Ambassadors one of them was disgusted, one of them was for it, about Quark's sex programs.
It was the Bolian who was for it, which,
Yeah, I can't wait for the episode where Jeffrey Combs first shows up as that pervert who wants a copy of Kira, the sex program.
Oh, yeah. And gets Quark.
Yeah, gets Quark. Yeah. Quark's just a rapscallion who will make copies of you for sex programs. Talking about AI stuff that's aged scarily. Yeah.
I was gonna say that's like an actual real life fear. It's not that anyone's gonna do that of me. I'd be flattered, but.
Type. Look that up.
I thought you were going to have something else there, Mike, but that was the end of it.
No, just terrifying that like with AI and deepfake technology and all that kind of stuff, just no one's safe.
Oh no, we'll all be out of work in the next like 20 years. It's gonna be great.
Since we're just floating on by, can I just ask, how does it feel for you guys to?
Is that a toothbrush?
Yeah, it is. It's just here on the desk. I use it to clean like keyboard. So just since we're here, I would love to ask, how do you guys feel about Deep Space Nine's first season currently? Since you're not only rewatching it but reviewing it, because I've, as a listener, have noticed that you guys are struggling a bit with how some of these episodes are a lot more light than you may remember them being. Like it's a lot of just like, oh, this episode happened, that happened, and then it's like, yep, that was Deep Space Nine, everyone.
Funny you should bring it up because I have my original feelings about watching DS9, remembering it fondly as a child, and I tried to go back and start a DS9 rewatch probably 10 years ago, and I couldn't do it. I made it into season 3 barely, and it was like a struggle for me to get that far. But weirdly enough, this time around, and I don't know if it's just that I'm trying to think more deeply about it as we're watching these things, knowing that we're going to go talk about it, but I've actually not had much of an issue watching any of these episodes thus far in season 1. I feel like they're head and shoulders better quality than I kind of last remembered, and I found most of them enjoyable, sometimes in ways that I don't expect.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of an odd duck. I think season 1 is a good season season of DS9. I actually think season 2 is more of a weaker season than season 1, but I'm enjoying it. This is the first time, much like when we did B5, this is the first time in close to 30 years where I'm watching only one episode week to week. I mean, Emily, you brought this up last week, and that may have been, like you said, one of the reasons why you didn't like If Wishes Were Horses, just because where it is in the season. Yep. And it's interesting. It's definitely interesting.
Yeah, and when I watch it under normal circumstances, I binge watch it. So putting that weirdo freaking episode like right where it is, my brain just like, oh god, this is terrible with the little demon.
Mm-hmm. I find, maybe because I'm a guest and I've just watched one random episode, I find, and I'm not a prude, I'm not a stickler for this stuff, but it is awfully hard to watch Deep Space Nine on my big TV in standard definite because the show's lit dark because they're on the station, because it's Cardassian. Like, it's going for a very different color palette, but in so doing, without a HD remastering of it or whatnot, it suffers the most for me to just physically watch it, to look at it, because it has this very murky brown texture to it all of the time, and it makes it hard to focus in on some stuff. And I think that's just a case of like, this is the Star Trek show that deserves to be touched up the most, because they are going for a striking visual style, but with how TV has television sets have progressed, or watching it on my computer and stuff, it does suffer a little bit. And that maybe that's just me coming in on the fly talking to you guys, but yeah, like, I like Deep Space Nine, but it's weirdly one I rewatched the least, I think mainly because of that reason, but also I think it's the one that demands you to watch it in order because it's going for somewhat more serialized TV. But at the same time, I joke to you, Scott, when you say to the newbies, oh, just wait till season 3, then it gets good. It's like, oh guys, wait till like 40 episodes, 50 episodes, it gets good. And it's like, that fucking sucks. That fucking sucks to hear, And I think that season 1 is one of the better seasons of Star Trek with Deep Space Nine. I think the best first season is the original series. I think that one, out of all of Star Trek, that one knocks out of the park.
It amazes me how many like quintessential episodes of TOS are from like the first 20 episodes of TOS.
Mm-hmm. And I think Voyager's first season's also one of the tightest. It's also short and just has some pretty decent episodes too.
Yeah. Cool. But yeah, no, there was a little bit of updating done for the documentary, and I think that was partly done to try to get Paramount to do an update. That being said, and they did for TNG, but obviously TNG is more lucrative property.
That's the moneymaker, yeah.
But that being said, they just released an updated 4K version of the motion picture, which actually they added some new stuff into there too, and it looks pretty. So I still hold out hope. There's also a group on I'll put a link in the show notes, but there's a group on Twitter that are redoing episodes and upscaling them with AI, and ironically they started doing it about the same time we started doing the show, so they're upscaling episodes at the same time. So I'll put that link in the show notes as well. So
yeah,
work in progress. Maybe one day. Okay, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Again, reminder to like, subscribe, follow, leave reviews, and check out Ryan's podcast over at Yum Yum. The links is down below. And yeah, join in on social medias and chat. Let us know what you think as we get closer to the end of season 1. Until next week when we talk Dramatis Persona, been Scott, and with me has been
Emily,
Mike,
Prentice,
and Ryan.
Bye, Ryan. Bye, Ryan.
Bye, Ryan.
Bye, Ryan.
Bye, Ryan.
Let's all go swimming. God, I love that line so much. I busted up laughing when I heard it again. Okay.
All right, back to my smut.
I really think that is the only thing that you do.
It's actually not. I read other books too.
I am not like you. Every 16 hours, I turn into a liquid.
I could swim.